Marcus Jackson adjusted his tie and smoothed the wrinkles from his navy blue suit jacket. At 72, he carried himself with the same discipline and poise that had earned him 3 Purple Hearts and a Distinguished Flying Cross during his 30 years of service in the Air Force. The morning sunlight streamed through the tall windows of Atlanta International Airport, casting long shadows across the polished floor as he made his way toward Gate B-17. Flight 2453 to Chicago, now boarding first class and military personnel, announced the gate agent over the PA system. Marcus smiled, thinking about his 3 grandchildren waiting for him in Chicago. Twice a month, he made this journey to spend weekends with them while his daughter Tanya, a surgeon, worked her hospital shifts. His carry-on contained carefully wrapped presents, a model airplane kit for 10-year-old Devon, science books for 8-year-old Zoe, and a teddy bear wearing pilot wings for little Amara, just turning 3. The silver wings pinned to his lapel caught the light as he approached the gate. These weren't just decoration, they represented decades of breaking barriers as one of the first black fighter pilots in his squadron. Marcus had navigated hostile skies abroad, never expecting to face turbulence on a routine domestic flight. Today, Marcus settled into his first-class seat, 3A, placing his carry-on carefully in the overhead compartment. The cabin was filling with passengers, businesspeople tapping on laptops and families preparing for the 2-hour flight. He unfolded his newspaper and began reading when a sharp voice interrupted him. "Excuse me, sir. May I see your boarding pass?" Flight attendant Zara Winters stood over him, her tone clipped, eyebrows raised suspiciously. "Of course." Marcus handed over his boarding pass with a polite smile. Zara examined it with obvious skepticism. "This says first class." "Yes, that's correct." "I think there must be some mistake," she said, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "First class is quite expensive." Marcus felt a familiar tightening in his chest, the calm before confronting discrimination he'd experienced countless times. "There's no mistake. I'm exactly where my ticket says I should be." "Perhaps you misunderstood during boarding," Zara insisted, her voice now drawing attention from across the aisle. "Economy class is toward the rear." "Ma'am, I've been flying first class on this route twice monthly for 3 years, Marcus replied calmly, though his hands gripped the armrests tighter. "I know exactly where my seat is." The businessman beside Marcus shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. "Well, we've had issues with seat confusion recently," Zara continued, placing her hand on Marcus's shoulder bag. "I'll need to move this to make room for other passengers." "Please don't touch my property," Marcus said firmly, reaching for his bag. What happened next unfolded in seconds. Zara yanked the bag away, Marcus stood to protest, and she swung her arm in what she would later claim was a defensive gesture. Her hand connected with Marcus's face with a crack that silenced the entire cabin. Marcus staggered backward, more from shock than force, a red mark blooming on his cheek. "Security!" Zara shouted into her radio. "I need security at first class. We have an uncooperative passenger." The commotion drew passengers from their seats, phones recording as 2 security officers rushed down the aisle. Marcus remained standing, dignified despite the red mark on his face. "I have done nothing wrong," he stated clearly. "This woman assaulted me after demanding I move from my assigned seat." The lead security officer, a young man named Tamir, hesitated, looking between Marcus and Zara. Before he could speak, a commanding voice cut through the tension. "What exactly is happening on my airline?" The crowd parted as a woman in her late 60s strode forward. Elise Jackson wore a tailored charcoal suit, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a neat bun. The airline's gold executive pin gleamed on her lapel. Zara's face drained of color. "Mrs. Jackson." "I didn't expect." "Clearly not," Elise replied, reaching Marcus and gently touching his reddened cheek. "Are you all right, darling?" "I'm fine, Elise," Marcus answered, squeezing her hand. Elise turned to address the stunned flight attendant and security officers. "For those who don't know, I'm Elise Jackson, Chief Executive Officer of Horizon Airlines. This gentleman is my husband of 47 years, and apparently, he can't even fly on the airline I've led for the past decade without being assaulted. The cabin fell completely silent. Zara's radio slipped from her fingers, clattering against the floor as reality dawned on her face. Elise gestured for the cabin crew to gather. Within minutes, the plane's captain, co-pilot, and 3 other flight attendants had assembled near row 3. The passengers watched in hushed anticipation. "We'll be delaying departure briefly," Elise announced to the cabin, her voice steady and authoritative. "Please remain seated. You'll receive compensation for this delay, and I apologize for the disruption." Turning to the crew, she continued more quietly but with unmistakable resolve. "This incident will be addressed now, not behind closed doors where it can be minimized or forgotten." "Mrs. Jackson, I can explain," Zara began, her voice trembling. "I was following our protocol for passenger verification, and what protocol requires physically striking a passenger?" Elise demanded. "Or are you suggesting this is how you verify all first-class travelers?" "No, ma'am," Zara whispered. The captain, a veteran pilot named Darnell Thompson, stepped forward. "Elise, I had no idea this was happening. I was in the cockpit preparing for departure. This isn't about one incident, Darnell." Elise pulled out her tablet and opened a file. "In the past 6 months, we've received 27 complaints about discriminatory treatment on our flights. 17 involved black passengers being questioned about their seating assignments. 8 specifically mentioned Ms. Winters." Zara's face crumpled as her colleagues stared at her. "We've implemented sensitivity training 3 times, Elise continued, addressing the entire crew. "We've revised policies. Yet somehow, the message isn't getting through that every passenger deserves equal respect. My own husband was profiled and assaulted on our flagship route." Marcus placed a hand on Elise's arm. "Let me speak." He turned to the crew and nearby passengers. "I don't want revenge. I want change. Real change, not just paperwork and seminars that people sit through while checking their watches. How many other veterans, doctors, teachers, or everyday people have been humiliated without the privilege of having a CEO spouse to intervene?" A young flight attendant named Keisha stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "Sir, ma'am, I've seen this behavior before, but I was afraid to report it. I'm still on probation, and I didn't want to cause trouble." Elise nodded grimly. "That ends today. Horizon Airlines doesn't just have a discrimination problem, we have a culture problem." 2 weeks later, Marcus and Elise sat together in the company boardroom as the executive team filed in. Despite Elise's insistence that she should recuse herself from certain decisions due to her personal connection to the incident, the board had unanimously requested her leadership through the crisis. "The videos taken by passengers have been viewed 17 million times," stated Horizon's PR director, Tasha Reynolds. "But our response plan is actually generating positive press. The public appreciates transparency." Marcus nodded as Tasha displayed slides showing the comprehensive changes being implemented.